Well, Karen Reed is being sued by John O'Keefe's family for a wrongful death. They say she created a false narrative that resulted in a hung jury. And this one's going to continue to be volatile. I want to know what you think about it. And welcome to Profiling Evil. Thanks so much for subscribing and hitting that like button. And please give us a thumbs up to share us with all your friends. Now I'm up here in Park City area for the Corey Richins trial that was today, the preliminary hearing. She's now been bound over, and now I want to talk about a lawsuit that was filed by the family of murdered police officer from Boston, John O'Keefe, against Karen Reed, the Massachusetts woman whose murder trial in the O'Keefe death ended with a hung jury just a few weeks ago. Now, according to 7 News, the civil suit alleges that she, along with 2 bars that the couple frequented before John O'Keefe died, served alcohol to Reed when she was already intoxicated. The family alleges that Reed, while intoxicated, struck and killed John O'Keefe with her SUV. They also claim that Reed inflicted severe emotional distress on O'Keefe's niece by misleading her about information surrounding this incident. In that allegation, and in addition to the aggravated emotional distress charges that they've leveled against Reed, they say that Reed's niece, remember she's the one that was living with him, he had custody over her, suffered over the course of the subsequent investigation, including suffered from emotional distress. Reed supposedly woke this teen up at 4:30 in the morning on the 29th and claimed that O'Keefe had not returned home. That's what the lawsuit is stating. Now, this young girl allegedly heard Reed say, "Maybe I did something. Maybe a snowplow hit him. Maybe I hit him. Maybe I hit him. We were in an argument. Maybe he got hit by a snowplow," close quote. All that's included in this document now. Well, later that day, they go on to say that Reed supposedly visited O'Keefe's family in a veiled effort to comfort them. And she used the opportunity to remove her car and relevant evidence from the crime scene. The family claims all of this again in this lawsuit that they've put out. And the O'Keefe family is seeking at least $50,000 in damage in their lawsuit. I think, again, this is more about finding guilt than just getting $50,000. But I thought it might be helpful to explore some of the legal ramifications, including potential civil damages in wrongful death cases, the emotional distress, as well as maybe some of the possible financial situations involved. As you likely recall, Reed claimed her innocence at the criminal trial as her defense team alleged that law enforcement officers framed her. Prosecutors charged her with second-degree murder with vehicle manslaughter while driving under the influence and leaving the scene of a collision that caused death. After 5 days of deliberation, a judge declared a mistrial when the jurors could not reach a unanimous verdict. But the Commonwealth has since been granted a new trial date of January of 2025. So they're taking this thing back, and she's going to have to do it again. But let's examine some of the reasons why a civil suit is now in the works. I want to start by playing a little news clip.
Hi, some news from New England now. Karen Reed is scheduled to be retried for murder. This will happen in January of next year. A judge in Massachusetts released that decision on Friday. Reed is accused of running over her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, and then leaving him to die back in January of 2022. Her first trial, which was highly watched, ended last month when jurors said they were deadlocked and a judge declared a mistrial on the 5th day of deliberations. Now, after the mistrial, defense lawyers said that jurors had actually made a decision about the charges against Reed, but the judge said the jury never told the court that they were able to reach any verdict. Reed's second trial expected to start on January 27th.
Let's start by exploring the differences between civil trials and criminal trials and the burden of truth that's required to find somebody guilty or liable. So first, in criminal trials, the prosecution needs to prove the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a really high standard, and this is in part, in my opinion, the reason the Karen Reid trial ended in a mistrial. The jurors couldn't come to a consensus. Beyond the reasonable doubt is the highest legal standard of proof in the criminal justice system. A jury or a judge must be almost certain of the defendant's guilt in these kinds of cases, and any reasonable doubt must result in acquittal, or in this case, they just found that they couldn't come to a resolution. This protects the accused person from wrongful conviction by requiring the prosecution to prove their case with near certainty. Now, comparatively, in civil trials, the burden is much lower, requiring proof by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning it's more likely than not that the defendant is liable. Now, this lower standard requires the evidence show that it's more likely than not that the defendant did this. It could be as slight as 51% certainty. It boils down to balancing both parties, reflecting that civil cases often dispute over rights or compensation rather than maybe your liberty, sending you to jail. The key differences boil down to the impact of the outcome that we see. Criminal trials can result in the loss of freedom, or even life in some cases, justifying this higher standard. Civil trials, on the other hand, generally involve financial or equitable kinds of remedies, and they allow for this lower threshold of proof. In the Karen Reid case, and considering these new developments, the burden is on the prosecution to eliminate all reasonable doubt. But in these civil cases, the plaintiff just needs to tip the scales in their favor. This distinction ensures that in criminal trials, the risk of punishing the innocent is minimized, while in civil trials and cases, the focus is more about resolving the dispute with a more balanced approach. My experience has been most civil trials following a criminal trial end up in that defendant being found guilty. In short, criminal trials can lead to penalties like imprisonment or fines. On the flip side, civil trials result in financial compensation or other kinds of remedies for the plaintiff. In criminal cases, the state prosecutes the defendant, while in civil cases, the victim or their family sue for damages. So, in summary, there are a couple of reasons why victim families are resorting to civil trials, namely seeking justice, financial compensation. They want more control over the case, and they want a means of addressing what they perceive to be negligence on the part of the defendant. So let's talk about each of those for just a moment as part of our Academy series, Seeking Justice. If a criminal trial doesn't result in a conviction or sufficient penalty, civil trials often offer avenues for accountability. I think that's mainly the biggest part of that. Number two, financial compensation. Civil lawsuits can provide financial compensation for damages, such as medical costs, loss of income, or emotional distress. And we see these being lined out in this new lawsuit that's been filed. I think this is a biggie when we talk about control over the case. The victim's family has more control in civil cases, including decisions on the settlement, the amount, the ability to present evidence, and every other part of it. And finally, addressing what they perceive to be negligence. Civil suits can hold third parties, like businesses or others, accountable if they contributed to the harm through negligence, as seen in this lawsuit against the bars in John O'Keefe's case. The action taken by John O'Keefe's family might result in one thing that this family feels they are missing: a court finding Karen Reid guilty of John O'Keefe's wrongful death, and the pain and suffering that they've reportedly endured is somehow compensated through this process. I don't know, and I'd like to know your thoughts on the action taken by Officer John O'Keefe's family. I hope that you'll put your comments down below, and I hope you'll take time to review and respond to others. Remember, folks, that you can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And make sure you're subscribing to Profiling Evil's audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. I hope that you're going over to profilingevil.com and that you'll spend some time looking through our story maps. While you're there on the site, also check out our new crowdsourced Unsolved Murders and Missing Persons map. We have more than 25,000 missing persons and homicides on that thing that haven't been solved. It's a place where you can look for unsolved cases in your own neighborhood, and you can submit your own cases for consideration to be included on the site. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon at the next crime scene.